Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and I wanted to talk to you today about Star Wars versus Star Trek. And before I get going, let me just first explain there is no clear winner, at least in my book, because I enjoy both Star Wars and Star Trek, and pretty much always have. Now, you probably noticed by now, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, that I have a slight fascination with collecting Darth Vader memorabilia. That has nothing to do with my belief that Star Wars is inherently better than Star Trek, because it isn't. Just because both series have star in the title does not mean that they are equal. In fact, they're not equal in any way. One is a complete galaxy apart. Well, figuratively and literally. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's in the past, in the distance. Star Trek is here in the future. And even deeper than that, Star Wars is kind of like well, at least the original series, the first trilogy that I grew up with. It's more like a series of cowboy movies. You know, it's fantasy. Whereas Star Trek, it's fantasy, but it's also something that could actually happen. In fact, I hope that at some point in the future, we're able to live in a Star Trek universe here in this existence that we know, because I think the idea of, you know, our existence is nothing but exploring the universe or the galaxy or whatever. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. That type of idea doesn't really exist in the Star Wars universe. The Star Wars universe is political in a completely different way. I watched both series of movies growing up, did not watch Star Trek, the original series, on TV. I didn't really get into it. My dad did. He enjoyed it, but I thought it was kind of cheesy even back then. And I didn't think Star Wars was cheesy back then until I watch it now and go, oh yeah, that was a little cheesy, but it worked. There was something about Star Wars, the first movie, that just captured my imagination in such a way that Star Trek never really did. Star Trek interested me, and don't get me wrong, as much as The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time to this point in time, in the Star Trek universe or galaxy or whatever, The Wrath of Khan is my favorite movie. And we used to rent the VHS tapes all the time because we couldn't, I don't think we could buy them back in the day, or at least we didn't buy them back in the day. We would rent them for like $5 or whatever to watch the movie over and over and over again. And we do that very frequently with not just the Star Wars series, but also Star Trek as well. So you'll have to pardon as my hands kind of fly around here. I wanted to, show you with emotion that I care very deeply about both Star Wars and Star Trek. And when I think about it, beyond the dramatic differences between the two, and not understanding why people are intent on comparing the two, because you can enjoy both, and I do absolutely enjoy both. I don't see a clear winner. There is really none. You could argue ad infinitum and never come up to any kind of conclusion. I think it boils down to emotion. And I remember seeing the first Star Wars film in the theater with my dad, and I just remember one scene where the X-Wings were going after the Death Star. And that's the only scene that was imprinted. But I don't know if that really hooked me. What really catalyzed my fascination with Star Wars, probably more than Star Trek at that point in time, was this guy. This very figure. It's a Star Wars figure, an AT-AT driver, and you have to pardon if it's not in focus here. Let me get a little closer to the camera, see if we can bring them both. There we go. Got them both in focus. I bought this little guy for 99 cents. There's C on the bottom of his feet. That's how we used to mark our figures, because I have two brothers, and they would Adam and Ben, so there would be B or A or C on the bottom of figures so that we wouldn't get them confused. I think this is the only AT-AT driver in our house. The one I got, 99 cents, the very first Star Wars figure. The thing that I loved about it, because Empire Strikes Back was out, the thing that I loved is his design. He looked awesome. I thought this is totally cool. And they didn't really have a lot of Star Trek toys. Now that I think about it, they really didn't grow. And growing up, we collected Star Wars figures, and my brothers probably got dragged into it because I was collecting them. They enjoyed Star Wars as well. We play, or we would pretend to play within the Star Wars galaxy. We would never play Star Trek. And it's not that we didn't enjoy the movies. It's not that we didn't enjoy what was going on with Star Trek. It's just that Star Wars was fantasy, and that's I think what I latched onto. Not to mention this figure, which years later turned into an addiction of sorts. I'm a collector. What can I say? Although my type of collecting is open it up, play with it. I would hesitate to ever have him in a package or keep him in the package. And I still have him to this day. So I never really collected Star Trek anything, although I enjoyed it, enjoyed the movies. I got into Star Trek more when The Next Generation was released back when I was in college. We would watch that, friends would gather, we'd watch the episodes together, reruns or whatever. We'd watch them just over and over and over again. I got into it. I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed Deep Space Nine probably more than I enjoyed the Next Generation. And not many people like Deep Space Nine, but that is my favorite of the Star Trek series on TV. That's my all-time favorite, Deep Space Nine. Star Wars really hasn't had a TV run yet, other than an animated series, and I'm iffy on those. I mean, they're okay, but it was the original trilogy that really pulled me in. And no matter what I've seen come out of Star Wars in terms of content after the original trilogy, I can't say that anything's really rekindled my interest for Star Wars yet. I'm not a fan of the prequels. Then again, I wasn't a fan of every single Star Trek movie either. But I have definitely enjoyed both galaxies for completely different reasons. I do not think there's a clear winner. I think it's okay to enjoy both. And in fact, I think you're a better geek for enjoying. You don't even have to be a geek to enjoy Star Wars or Star Trek, or Star Wars and Star Trek, so long as you enjoy talking about this stuff.